Hi everyone, I'm Gus, the founder of Onebowlofrice. The main intent of this podcast is to share with you an inspirational story of leaders from all over the world who choose to follow their passion to help others. Many of us will agree that the world will be a better place if we can all empower each other to help others. Today, I'm so proud to introduce Tanya Lawrence, the co-founder of RestoreOne, a nonprofit organization who strives to break poverty, one child, one family, one community at a time. Hello, Tanya. How are you?
Hello, Gus. So nice to see you today.
Welcome to Onebowlofrice. I know it's early morning in UK, so thank you again for your time. You look bright and energetic for this session.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
We are too. So Tanya, not to delay this important session, because I think the world wants to hear from you. I'm blessed to be able to learn from you in the last couple of weeks, your journey, your story. You run and co-founder of RestoreOne, a non-profit organization. And every time I talk to leaders that leading non-profit organization, the first thing come to my mind is why you are choosing that path, because the complexity are the same, the challenges are big, the emotional connection to the people that you try to help just mind-blowing. But before we get there, can you introduce yourself to the audience? And I want to go straight to the why.
Oh, okay. So my name's Tanya Lawrence, and I managed to get to work in Cambodia. As a lot of things happen in life, Gus, it was by fluke. And so, will we start from the beginning here? I'll start from when I first went to Cambodia.
Yes.
So, look, my husband was running a group, like a Pathfinder group, which is like a Christian scouting group. And we were having a camp in Australia, and this was years ago. This was like 13 years ago. And we decided at that camp, look, let's take the kids to a place that will challenge them, that will be bigger than who they are. So we all sat around and everyone else was working full time except me. And so I said, okay, I'll organize where we're going to go and what we will do. And so I threw the net out all over Asia, all over Pacific, looking for a place to go with these kids and friends, not really knowing where we will go. And an orphanage contacted me in Cambodia and said, look, we are desperate for a school. Would you fundraise $40,000 for our school? And I said, oh, yes, we'll do that. And I went back to the group and I said, look, we've got this place. They want a school. It's going to be 40,000. And everyone goes, I don't know about that. That's just a bit much money. And then we said together, we agreed together, look, how about we just do one fundraiser a month? We've got 12 months. We'll just do one fundraiser a month, and then we'll take the gift on whatever it is. And so I planned a 2-week trip where we'd work on the school at the end and we'd give our money and do all these things. And just before we were going to leave, my husband has an accident. And he breaks his collarbone and punctures his lung, and he needs surgery. The day we're leaving, he's in surgery. And I am crying all the way to the airport saying, how am I going to do this? I've got 40 people with me. And anyway, the long and short of it is this school got built. We had fundraised $53,000.
And how long ago was this?
Like 13 years ago.
So it's actually
Yeah.
feel like 60,000 or 70,000 back then.
Yes, yeah, it did. It went a long way. I think it was, look, I can't even remember now, 4 or 5 classrooms. So, you know, it was just super exciting. We got there for 2 weeks and we did English training classes, and we did kids club, and we plastered and painted the classrooms, and we had a lot of fun. It was based out of Siem Reap, so in the evenings we went out and ate good food and massages and had a really wonderful time. Anyway, look, at the end of those 2 weeks I left and my heart was full. I said, oh, this is pretty good. I might have to do this again, you know. And I realized that, Gus, I had a gift that I could lead people, yeah,
Wow, that's fantastic.
into something that was out of the ordinary. And I just loved it. I just loved it. So we went back to Australia, and, you know, a few months later, the team is saying, look, we're a bit depressed. We want to do something else. So again, I threw the net out and we thought, let's go to a different part of Cambodia. By this time, I'd started to fall in love with the people of Cambodia, because remembering the people had really only had, the first time I ever went there, they'd only had 6 years since they'd had peace. And food wasn't plentiful, our medical care wasn't plentiful, and there was a genuine need. I think in Australia sometimes we call things a need, but they're not. Anyway, I won't get on that. But we found another NGO based in between Siem Reap and Phnom Penh that said, yes, we need a residential care home built, and we'd like you to do some English teaching with all of our teachers here. And we came there for two weeks and had a great time again. At the end of that 2 weeks, they said, Tanya, would you come and work with our organisation? We've got 5 orphanages in 5 different countries. We want you to be a child services person and also volunteer coordinator. Okay, so I went, okay, you know, it was just such a good opportunity to grab. And I did that for 2 years. And during those 2 years, I learned really important things about the negatives of orphanages, what's a better model than orphanages, how I work with global people, how we make things sustainable, how we work with the local people, what do they want. And I also ran a mobile medical clinic with different groups of people that went from one village to the next, and we would spend one whole day at the village. Now, there'd be often a doctor, a few dentists, nurses, chiropractors, physios, all sorts of medical people, and I had to use their skills and set up for the day. And then every day we'd have people who were in critical condition, and we could take them to hospital and have them funded their surgery and things like that. During this period of time, I got to know the village quite close to us that really struggled, and they were one of the poorest villages that we'd met. Poverty looks like hunger, it looks skin diseases, the people are thin, you know, their kids don't generally go to school because they have to go out to work in the fields or go to Phnom Penh. Anyway, we got to know this village. And 2 years later, we decided to leave the organisation. Another guy, Greg, and myself, who were working for the organisation, left. And we went to this village and said, okay, what do you want? And by this time, we knew the chief and the elders because we'd been there quite a few times. And they said, Tanya, you know, we want housing, you know, because we had been building housing. We love that. But what we really want is an excellent primary school. And so we committed to that and thought, well, we better open up a charity, and then it all goes. And you discover all these Australian legalities that you have no idea of what to do. And people came into our lives that helped us put together the legalities and things. And RestoreOne was formed, and that was about 8 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Tanya, can I just ask up to date, because the story, even up to date, I have these questions. You know, when you describe the poverty, you know, the hungry children, the chief of the village asking for primary school, when where we come from, people actually refuse to go to school. Many of them, you know, if they can stay at home and playing games or something like, but they want to go to school. Don't forget, I'm still will ask you the why, because it's difficult to see. It's not pretty, you know, like you know, in the ideal world, I want to choose to see, how do I pick it? You know, isn't it nicer to see Las Vegas? So isn't it nicer to see, you know, to actually put yourself, to actually go back, talking to the poorest village in Cambodia. Forget about Cambodia. The poorest village in Australia will still look difficult to see compared to, you know, where we come from, you know, Melbourne,
Yes.
Sydney, or
Yes.
you, London.
Yes.
Can we just stop that story there and we come back? Because now I'm really interested. Why, Tanya? Why? What is the strong calling? What makes you as a person do this? That you able to switch from, instead of watching Netflix, you watching.
I watch Netflix too.
You watch the reality of life that many will not even understand.
I think for me, and I think for everyone, there's a few things I've learned. When you do a kindness for someone else, it fills your heart. And I learned that on the first trip. When you do a kindness from someone else, when you do something out of your expertise and take a risk, sometimes it hits you in the face and doesn't really work out, but other times it takes a risk. It gives you a bit of an adrenaline rush, you know. But ultimately for me, I think it is falling in love with the people.
Wow, that is so powerful.
Because when you're in love with a person, you know, not talking about sexual love, when you're just in love with people, you will go out of your way to help them. But it comes back to you. You've got to give it a kick back yourself, but your love tank gets filled up.
Yeah. Are you always feeling like this since you are young? Like, are you always like, you know, when I met you,
I don't know,
a couple of weeks ago,
my brothers and sisters.
You know, you full of smile, you full of energy. Is this you all the time? Like, it's your upbringing.
I think everyone goes up and down. That's a normal part of life. It's up and down. For my upbringing, I got brought up in Fiji as a missionary daughter, and my parents were missionaries over there. Yes, so I had a very unusual childhood till I was 9. I used to do 1 hour of schooling a day, and the rest was play.
And play in the best water. I've been to Fiji.
Exactly right. That was my, you know, I had a lot of freedom from a little girl. When I was 9, my father died in a tragic water skiing accident, which we all watched. You know, from a little girl, I learned what loss is, you know. And so I think almost immediately when I worked in those orphanages or when I worked with the villages, I see more than who they look like or need. I see their loss, you know. And I think that compassion comes because of having a shitty childhood experience, you know, terrible trauma. So trauma is different all around the world, but if you're experienced a trauma, you can actually see it in others.
And I think if you're able to live through it, it's become the fuel of power that can help you to love other people more. And I think I agree with what you said. You know, I went to Anthony Robbins' seminar once, and he said, if you actually do anything or chase anything the way you actually chase your first love, you can actually do almost anything in life, because you just never give up on that. Right?
Yes.
And
yes.
your love to the people in Cambodia. Sorry to cut you off. I just really, really interested to your calling here, because you know, I come from a corporate backgrounds, and you know, the why are different. And when I talk to leaders of non-profit organization, I do learn a lot. And thank you for sharing on that. Now come back to RestoreOne again. You know, I cut you off when you said that, okay, so the chief village want to build the primary school.
The primary school,
but it's expensive, right? Primary
it
school.
is expensive, because back there was 2 little cement classrooms, and at that time there was a teacher that would come in half a day a week, maybe 1 day a week, maybe. You know, they were just in such a struggle street for that school, and the chief realized that we needed 5 or 6 days of schooling a week for the village. So we got to I asked schools and churches that I knew, and community groups, women's groups, you know, would you consider coming to Cambodia for 2 weeks, bringing your skills? But I want you to come and pay me $1,000 to go in the charity for the project. I want you to pay $1,000 for your food and travel and accommodation for 2 weeks and your airfare, and come along. Anyway, that's how it happened. And we decided to do, let's put grade 1 and 2 classroom in the little cement buildings, renovate them, and then build grade 3 and 4 classroom, and then grade 5 and 6 classroom. And that's how that, you know, with the teams bringing money and generous donors, no government support, the school got finished. And we had at that time over 200 kids in the school, in the primary school. And the nearest, they could go to school, but they'd have to ride, I think it's about 17 kilometres on a pushy or walk to school. So
how big is the village?
Came to school.
How big is the village? I mean,
it's a couple k's long, and the houses are dotted along a dirt road, you know. And a lot of these people transient. They will work in paddocks in the fields, growing rice, growing cassava, and they will travel around in their horse and cart and go to different places and come back. So we really didn't know how many people we would get to school. So we basically set that school up. And then at that same time the school was going, we were like, okay, the village really needs more food. How are we going to get more food? And we had a little organisation said, well, we'll feed the kids at school for Friday. And then we went, after we trialled that for a few months, we said, you know what would be better than food? We want you to give us seed and money for seed. So we bought a block of land, and we taught the kids how to grow things every term. And at the beginning of the term, they would have to bring a plastic bag with 8 cow patties in each plastic bag, and we still do it to this day. And they learn to grow something new. So in the village previously, there would be rice grown and cassava, and the soil wasn't that good, but we didn't actually teach parents how to grow new things like papayas and coconuts and, you know, mango trees and fruit and veggies. Basically, we taught the kids and give them corn or whatever to grow. And now you go in the village And especially when the rain's there and it's green and everyone's growing multitudes of different things. All the families are looking after themselves and feeding them.
Can I ask you a question? Are you a gardener by hobby? Like, do you
No!
like gardening? Like, so the reason I
hate
that,
it.
So
I hate it.
So how do this idea come from though? Like, I mean, like people tend to suggest what they like. If I'm there, I probably teach them how to cook noodles because I love cooking
You
noodles.
would. Yeah. Yeah.
Share with us why a brilliant idea like that, instead of giving food and keep begging, you actually said, why don't we grow it?
Yes,
How did it
absolutely.
come to that?
I think again, I learned a lot when we were running medical clinics, because quite often we give out clothes or we would give out food if we had food back in that day. But what I learned in that time is that in the end, to give food and give clothes and giving things like that doesn't help a person long term. That is just for the pure emergency times, if there's an earthquake or something. What we really need is to give people freedom, and freedom means they get to make their own decisions. And so if you learn to give learn to give seed instead of rice, if you learn to give a fishing line instead of, that's what it's about. Ultimately, we want to leave the village. Ultimately, we want to leave the village, and it's their village. So this year in COVID, we managed to give back the primary school to the government. And that came with some sadness and some happiness. But as we'll probably talk on later on, we've still got a high school and a preschool that we're managing, and housing. And I have, as soon as COVID is finished, I want to have teams of people coming and helping putting up toilets with the families. So they put in sweat equity, they put in a little bit of money if they can, and we do it together as a community. So we've done about 15 toilets. And my goal is this year we'll have teams coming back and we will work with each family.
And Tanya, when I look at your website, it's RestoreOne.org. Is that right? www.RestoreOne.org. Your mission is a bit different. When I look at different charity organizations, they tend to quite broad. They want to save broad. You are focusing on a village, like the way I make it fun in my mind, when you're playing games, like when you play games on the computer, you actually try to build a village, this small village in Cambodia, got no school, got no food, got nothing. And you try to save that village. Can I just ask you, how do you select the village? Like there's a lot of village. Why do you select that village? Is it because the chief of the village is a good guy, or
a bit of both, a bit of everything? So we selected the village because they're in need, firstly. Secondly, is we had formed a relationship with that village. Thirdly, this is what the village chief and elders wanted. It's no use going anywhere. And why do we just not do schools everywhere? Why do we just do water? It's because once you fall in love with one place, you realize all these problems are hinged on another problem. And it's very hard work to come in a village and say, okay, I'll do a school and then leave. You've got to leave your heart kind of somewhere. But to actually say, okay, we're going to work with you, it's a long-term project because it's social change. But that's where I believe some really big things happen. That you go in for the long haul. It's not a short haul. A short haul might be you give books to a library. Like I love those videos that do that. But for us, it's bigger than one thing. We work on all sorts of problems together. But I'm telling you, you cannot do a job like that if you don't have the community behind you.
Yes.
If you don't have a good staff in that community and good staff working for RestoreOne, and if you don't have good donors in Australia or wherever in the world they can be. You know, we have some from the UK, we have some from the USA, but majority are Australian. And it really, I sit in the middle because I liaise with the people in Australia and in Cambodia, and I get to meet the best people, the best people, the kindest, best people. If you want to marry a kind, best people, do some charity work and you'll find them.
Yes, isn't it simple there? When you think about, you know, good people are actually located in there, right? They want to help. Now, let's just change the topic a little bit. You know, all your story is very, at the very least, the way you tell the story is full of success. Tanya went to Cambodia, went to this poor village, built a school, teach them how to plant food. Everyone seems to be working, the staff, blah, blah, blah. But I'm sure it's not like that.
Reality is not like that, Gus.
Right? So can you share the down part? Share with me.
Oh,
the pain moment, the emotional pain moment that we can learn. And how do you even overcome that?
Yeah. So I remember when my grandma died and I was over there with the team and I couldn't get back. I had to run this team. And then I looked at prices to come back and it was double the amount of tickets to come back. I didn't have the money and I didn't come back for a funeral, you know, and I felt depressed, you know, I was sad, I was grieving. I don't know. How do you get over that? I think time, just keep on turning up. The next day I had to turn up with a smile on my face, you know.
And yet you do all this to help others when you actually have that kind of challenges. Like, once again,
everyone has challenges like that, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, everyone has.
Yes, but the different though. Everyone do have challenges.
Yeah.
But you actually in that village to, you know,
you've got to love yourself, Gus, in the end.
Yes.
So I find if I'm over there, sometimes I get overwhelmed with the drama going on or the problems with the team or not enough money. I go, okay, I'm going to have a massage tonight. I might go out with a few friends and have a nice meal together, and you've got to love yourself, you know. And sometimes after I've done 2 or 3 trips back to back, I'm there a couple months, I'm like, okay, I've got to come home. I've got to come home for a while. And I'll get home and quite often I'll bunker down for a few weeks before I go out talking to donors and planning the next trips and everything. And, you know, the staff are often tired when I leave there as well. And, you know, it's not smooth sailing with communication. You know, sometimes we communicate something and it just doesn't come out right. I remember it wasn't my story. It was the guy I worked with, Greg, in our last job. He was building a big chicken coop, right? And he told the guy in charge, I want it in this color, like this color, and pulled the guy's shirt out. And the fellow that was building it said, yes, sir, I'll do it in that color. We turned back and he'd put a big cloth roof on it, like a big fabric roof instead of a cast iron roof, you know. And sometimes there's just lack of communication that happens and, you know, things don't go right. But in the end, I really believe Sukun's our manager. If there's something really wrong, we'll say, I think it's time for a cup of tea. And we'll sit down with a cup of tea and just try and have that hard conversation and try and process it. Other times, like one day I turned up to school and one of the girls had got married, you know, and I was just devastated. And we're
talking young girls here. We're
young
not talking,
girls, you know, and I
how young we're talking about?
Yeah, young.
Yeah, 13. 13, 14.
Bit older, but as I say to the families, even if they're 16 and at legal age, let them finish their schooling, because
Yeah.
you never know what's going to happen with them. They need to be able to earn a good job. You know, you might be widowed with 3 children. You've got to have a good job. So anyway,
Yeah.
and I remember going back to the hotel, and Sakun and I had been arguing about how we were going to fix this. You know, in the end, we didn't fix it, Gus. You know, we do have losses, but
and that's one of the biggest emotional challenges for you, must be, because you love your children, your students.
That's right. The students,
you know, this is not like
best for all of them.
Yeah, this is not like you are going somewhere and playing with robots. You build a relationship with the children and the village. So
yeah,
I just cannot.
I want them to have success. But you know, when there's a big drama, the other thing is we always say, okay, let's go to bed, and we'll talk about it in the morning when we've got fresh eyes. And 90% of the time you wake up in the morning and you wake up to a plan, because your mind is so clever. It just, you know, it all thinks. And quite often we can be having an argument about something, Sukun and I, and in the morning we'll come to the same page because we've calmed down, we've slept it out. But yeah, in the end, what keeps you going back and forwards is your love for the people.
Love for the people.
Yeah.
You know, Tanya, it's funny when
love is a choice. It's a choice.
It's a choice too. Yes.
You know, you fight with your wife or your husband, but you love them, and you get up in the morning and say, today's going to be better.
Today's going to be better. Tanya, you know, it's funny. I listening all this, and all my mind is trying to register the complexity, the fact that you run a business. An organization is a business. You must eat a lot of humble pie, because I tell you why. I tell you why I say that you must eat a lot of humble pie. I'm leading an organization, a large organization, and you know, I've been in the business for almost 3 decades, and you know, I was a salesman at one point, and yet we sell a good products. And we get rejection. Yet if I sell the product, I actually get money.
Yes.
You have no product. You have to influence people. You have to influence the world so they can donate to you. So you can help people. It's not like they donate to you so Tanya can actually go to a pub and drinking beer.
None goes in my bag, mate. None goes in mine.
That's exactly. Yet, you know, and I hope I know that a lot of people that you touch and you contact will be, ooh, no, you know, Tanya, don't give me any product. You ask, how do you handle that rejection? Because I'm sure more rejection going to you than the yes. How do you, how do you, of course, you will say the love of the people must be stronger, which is fantastic. But I just interested in this. How it's like you will be rejected every single day.
But you know, it's not only me that's rejected. So what I am lucky enough to have in my life is just amazing supporters in Australia. Wow. They can be on the board, they can be visitors who have come, and they'll say, okay, Tanya, I'm going to go and do a barbecue for you. Or not for me, for the school. I'll do a barbecue for the school. You know, another girl says, I'm going to do a high tea or a dinner party for your school. You know, I will sell something made by our slum project in Phnom Penh, by the sewing project for you. So another girl or man will say, I'm going to bring a team of people to Cambodia for you. So it's not me on the phone ringing up everyone. My primary call will be my supporters saying, okay, you guys, do you think you can do something over the next few months?
Yes.
And then you have the people who have come over the 7 years, and they have seen the project. And when COVID came, they put money in our bank accounts, knowing we weren't having teams coming. You know, so it's not as bad as me being rejected. I must admit, right at the beginning, I used to cry at some rejections, but nah, I don't anymore. I don't anymore, Gus. But I think I've got a little bit tougher.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Good
And I think there's a way of rejecting. You can say,
Yeah.
oh, no, thanks, Tan. I can't do it right now. Yeah, c'est la vie, you know, but some people just don't say it quite like that, do they?
Yes, yes. Especially when there is thousands, millions of organization with
That's
different
right.
angle and all doing a good cause for the community.
Yeah.
And once again, they all have a different calling, and they have a different love to a different reason. And I respect your organization, and I think what you're doing is just amazing. Now, back to the topic. I remember when I spoke to you last week about what you're trying to do in the village. When the audience hear that you're building school, you're building a childcare, so the mom can go to school.
To work,
then you to work and to study as well. But you also mentioned to me about your project, the menstruation cup.
Oh, Gus,
right?
I didn't tell you anything about this before. This is fabulous.
Yes, and I when you just mentioned the name last week, and then we ran out of time, and I was thinking about it. I actually spoke to my wife, tried to understand it as well. And I'm thinking, yes, you working in one village, but the work that you do in that village, starting from a school, a childcare, buying a land for them to grow food, building a house, building a toilets, and now you also doing this project called Menstruation Cup, right? So I'm interested in two things. One is about how your organization focus on the village well-being, not only from one angle. So you're not a school builder, but you really look at it every time. Once this finished, they need this, they need that, right? And my question is, who's the brain? How do you sit there and come up with this idea? And then number two, if you can share this project itself. So start with, you sit down and how do you,
I'm sorry, Gus. I'm just closing this down. I should have done that before.
Oh, you want to share your screen, are you?
Mama trying to call me. I'm like, Mama.
That's okay. This is technology.
Oh, the home office, hey?
Yes, the home office. And yes.
Oh, Gus, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
So back to the menstruation cup. And my first question was, you and Greg sat down and just come up with this? Where the whole...
See, this wasn't Greg's specialty, that's for sure. Too funny. So back in the day, when I did the medical clinics, I discovered that if you were really, really poor, you actually don't have money for menstruation products, pads and things, and they would use rags, but that often come with all sorts of problems because they weren't washed. No, if you're really poor, you don't have money for detergent either. So, and there's this shame about hanging your rags on the line to dry, Back in the old days, women used to call it their periods rags, in Australia. And I know why now. Yeah. So anyway, we at one mobile clinic, we gave out pads. Right. And then everyone was excited, but then I realized half the women didn't have undies. So we went out and bought underwear. This is right back in the early days. They have moved on from there. So in our village, they started to buy pads But because there's no garbage collection, if you're in a rush, you'd bury your pads, but the dogs would dig them up, and there'd be a toxic waste around the village, right? And so one of the girls on our board said, how about we try menstrual cups? And I'm like, oh my God, really? You know, it's a bit gross. But, you know, I had to learn to use them, and we said, right, let's get them produced and see how they'll go in the village. So we tried a whole heap of companies in China, and they got us our first 15,000 menstrual cups. And they were paid for by a charity in Western Australia. And we got this grant from charity in Western Australia. So we got these menstrual cups, and what we would do is go from one village to the next and teach the women how to use a menstrual cup, put it in, wash it, store it, and care for it and care for your body. And we have done that ever since. In the meantime, we find that they're a bit hard for the girls that are younger in high school. So during COVID time, Bam Body, who makes period undies, gave us our first 2,000 period undies for the younger girls. So what happened in our village is when all the women started using the menstrual cups, they went, oh, this is good. It doesn't cost us money, doesn't make rubbish in the community, and it's actually just great for the environment, isn't it? So in our village, we found it was much, much cleaner. The women were so pleased with it. And so we've done a few studies follow up on the menstrual cups, and everyone asks how many are using it. And so about 90% of women who are on their periods were using a menstrual cup of the villages that we gave it to. And how we go to the village is that we line up with another village chief, and our staff do that. And we trot along with our display and our buckets of things, and we have all the women of the village come in, and we give the class, and they're all laughing. Like, women around the world, you talk about menstrual cups and do the class and they all laugh, you know. But what we find, if we do the whole village at once, the brave woman who uses the menstrual cup and works out how to use it will teach the others.
Okay.
And when you don't have money, you can pop that in for the day, you know, and you're safe. You can go on a motorbike, you can run, it's not going to fall out. The biggest thing is to teach them how to take it out, how to wash it, how to reinsert it, you know. So I love that project, and I really get to know women all in Cambodia with that. And I just realized we're the same, you know, people are the same all around the world.
But isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting, Tanya? Like you're bringing a topic, a project where if people have the choice, they probably don't want to talk about it. Yeah,
absolutely,
right.
Absolutely.
Right.
The funniest thing is Kun translates, a male translates for me, you know, and I have then a female teacher that comes and talks about how she uses it, but Sakun translates for me, and we just have a really fun time. You can learn a lot in one of those classes, and you laugh. And I've run these classes in Australia. It's exactly the same results. People laugh, you know, and they're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yep, the impact to the community, it's practical, it's meaningful. And absolutely. I think your organization very smart in you know, because at the end of the day, the problem will never ending, right? Like just initially the biggest problem is you have no food, then you give
that's
food,
right,
there is no roof. You give food and roof, there is no clothing. You give food, roof, clothing, you have no toilet. You give all this, and then it start to come back. Now you got the food from your, from your teaching them how to grow things, school, house, toilet, clothing, undies.
Yeah.
But
now the biggest thing is that they have to have their own job. It's not about us giving. And everything we do, we try and have sweat equity or just donate a little bit.
Can you go in there? Because this is different. I remember you mentioned to me last week, sweat equity means that you don't just make it everyone lazy and give something. Share
everyone
with me.
Puts in together. So if we're building a house, there has to be a family member that builds in with us. And often it's the husband, and they have to look after the tools and sort out things. They pull down part of their own house. They help build this house. The good thing is once they've done one home, they can do repairs and extensions on their home because they've learnt a new skill. And now for our buildings, our good high school buildings and everything, they're nearly all the frames, all the roof, all the solid stuff are done by the village men. And they get paid to do that, and then now they're getting work out of the village. So it's really important that when we're building a house that there's a family member there that's working. Now, sometimes you're doing it for a widow and she'll help a little bit and she'll do stuff too. But it is very important. With the toilets, we try and make that they give a little bit of money if they can. We couldn't charge them this year. We've been giving them rice for the first time ever because everything got locked down. So you kind of try and be flexible. At the same time, you really don't want to just be the cash cow.
Yes, because you're not teaching them anything as well.
No. Yeah.
Wow. Tanya, we only have like 5 minutes to go. Time goes so quick. We've been talking for 55 minutes. So let's talk about RestoreOne so the world can understand your organization. How do people support? Of course, we can go to your website, but can you summarize it? What can we do to get involved with you? The practical way? Is there anything beyond money that we can involve with you? Question that a lot of people will always ask, when they talk, whatever you want the world to know about.
I say it's the 3 T's, Gus: your time, your treasure, or your talent.
Wow.
And you know what I like the best is when I get all 3 of them from someone, because they can come over. Everyone has a gift in their hand. And this is what I do well. Everyone has a gift in their hand. And you might decide together with me that when you come over and spend 2 weeks with me, you not only fundraise $1,000 for the charity, but you're going to do classes on running businesses. Yes, with the villagers. And we have a translator. That's what we might do with you. At the same time, I might say, okay, Gus, I want you to put those bamboo walls up as well and teach you a few skills.
Hey.
So your time, your treasure, or your talent. Those that can't come overseas, it's really wonderful if they say, okay, Tanya, we'll do a morning tea for you.
What is that? What is, when you call morning tea, what is it? Like we're doing a morning tea charity for...
Yeah, so people might say, okay, it's Sunday morning, everyone's coming to my place, you've got to put, I've cooked a cake and a cup of tea and we're going to hang out together and you've got to donate to RestoreOne.
Yes, fantastic.
Yeah, so it's all sorts of things that people do to help us in Australia. So we have got a girls project at the moment. So instead of the girls going to Phnom Penh in the school holidays, they work at the school and they make Christmas decorations. So they get paid to work at the school, and also any profits we make from that pays their teachers. So it's a really good little project. And then we ask people in Australia, can you sell the Christmas decorations for $5 each, and they've just arrived in Australia. So there's always something, and just get in touch with me. And if you want to come on a trip for 2 weeks, get in contact with me. I'm hoping to crank crank this thing up next year again. And you know what? Beware, because when you come on a trip, Gus, you just might fall in love like I have, and like quite a few people have.
Yes. Wow,
Yeah.
it's just an incredible story. Obviously, when I hear about you, we get in touch because there's two things for me. Number one is there is a woman named Tanya, live in Australia, now in UK, that can have a easier calling. I mean, when I say easier, life is not meant to be easy anyway. But like what I said before, you choose through your love to look into the area that is not easy to look at. Looking at hungry children, women that can be sent for sex trafficking, uneducated people, no food, no roof, no clothes, nothing. And you choose to focus on that, and you commit for decades to give back to them. That's worth a lot of clapping. And then, whilst you're doing all this, you demonstrate leadership. I'm a big believer, leading with heart is the only way that you can win in the world, because there's no other way. And you said to us before that if what we want to do is based on love, we can always get there. And for me, this textbook about leadership, about anything, is actually as simple as that. If you doing something based on love, then you will achieve a great outcome. And when I go to your website, when I'm talking to you, the project is not boring.
No.
And by the way, I'm not saying that any non-profit organization is boring, by the way. I never say that. But what I'm saying is, you started by building a school, then you building a childcare, you buy a land for people to grow something to eat, even though you don't even like gardening. So that's for me, wow, that is fantastic. And then you build toilets so they become clean. You keep growing, and then the latest project is you identified that the hygienes of the women in that village is as important as the roof on top of the head, that you come up with this menstruation cup project that is, for many people, is a topic that we shouldn't discuss.
Confronting.
It's confronting, especially when you are in the first world country, a blessed country. I live in Australia, so what is that? We don't even talk about it. All that things is we just don't talk about it. But yet you bring that to the people that need it the most. Tanya, thank you so much for your time. I really hope that the world can go to www.restoreone.org.au to see the great work, Tanya, as the co-founder of RestoreOne. It is a great website. I hope I do a great job by sharing your stories.
Thank you.
You are definitely, sorry, Tanya, you definitely a bowl of rice stories for me.
Bless you, Gus. I look forward to meeting you in real life.
Yes. I hope the international flight is open soon, so we can talk about your journey in more details. Once again, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your time, and for the audience, I hope you enjoy my interview with Tanya Lawrence, the co-founder of RestoreOne. Amazing journey, amazing woman. Thank you. Have a great day.